Fighting game wikis are an invaluable source of information for the games they focus on. They have all the info you need on the game, ranging from system mechanics all the way to specific character interactions and combos listed on the character pages. These large feats of compiled information can't be completed alone, and thus there are many passionate contributors for these wikis working tirelessly to keep this info up to date. But wikis aren't all factual data. There's a bit of flavor text on these character pages that range from character lore, win conditions, recommended playstyles, and the classic pros and cons overview. This text isn't always entirely factual, they're usually opinions. Oftentimes those opinions are the community consensus of a character, but they are opinions nonetheless, as you can argue that some of the pros aren't that big of a deal, or that some of the cons of the character haven't even been listed. I love to go through the wiki pages for characters in games I know are high or top tier, and then seeing what they have listed in their pros and cons list. It's really entertaining seeing a character everybody knows is wildly powerful, and seeing if whoever wrote the pros and cons list is trying to look for things to put in the cons list. Like, nobody wants to be the guy whose character has like 7 pros and 1 con, but with some characters, it becomes pretty obvious when some of the cons are using very creative language, or are blatantly taking stuff that's really not unique to the character and trying to make it into something that sounds like it is. So today I'm going to go over some of my favorite examples of pros and cons on fighting game wikis using the Melty Blood Actress Again current code wiki. I'll view some pros and cons on these wiki pages, grade them, maybe say how I'd change it to more accurately reflect the character, coming from the uninformed opinion of someone who doesn't play that character. So starting off, I'll show a wiki page that I actually think the pros and cons for are really good, and that is C. Arcrid. C. Arc is one of the strongest characters in the game. Not quite top tier like some of the infamous characters Melty Blood is known for, but she's easily earning a spot undisputably at the top of high tier. Her wiki page is pretty brutally honest about this reality, and it conveys her standing really well. It lists all of the extraordinary things about her, which she does better than most characters, and her con is a very realistic and agreeable downside. She really doesn't have the same range or specials that other characters have to control the neutral game, and she doesn't have any particularly exceptional zoning tools, outside of her fantastic normals, to challenge characters who are specifically designed to go really hard into zoning her out. But other than that, she's just a really fundamental Melty Blood character who gets huge reward off of her confirms. She's kind of a jack of all trades, but also really fucking good at those trades, who can aggress really well, but also be very difficult to approach for other characters aiming to be aggressive on her. I also love that her high execution floor isn't listed as a con, but rather a notable trait. When you learn a character, their execution doesn't really become a downside or a pro, it's just kind of your reality, and you either learn to do it or you don't. Easier execution characters can be more consistent, but Arc's execution isn't so high that even the best players are regularly dropping her most consistent combos, so it's smart to mention the execution floor while separating it from being perceived as a downside. This character overview gets an S rank. Well done, Arcrid players. Moving on to another character page, this one also isn't too bad, but I got some gripes with it. C. Kohaku, another high tier character in Melty Blood, sharing a spot right next to C. Arc at the top of the high tiers. At first glance, you'd see the cons of Kohaku's page and think, well, there's only 2 of them, and looking at all those pros, that's pretty reasonable. But let's read into what those cons are actually saying. I'll start with the second one. No reversal. I think that this is just blatantly fucking false. Now, hear me out. Yes, Kohaku does not have an invincible move that is invincible all the way up until her active frames. This means that with very active moves, or some forms of projectile or disjointed Oki, her reversal move will just straight up lose in places where characters that have real reversals can get through. However, this doesn't stop her from using it to power through staggered pressure that can't be shield cancelled on whiff. I agree that this can be classified as a gimmicky special, and no true DP does make her defense game weaker. But almost everything this move loses to on Wake Up, every other gimmicky reversal also loses to on Wake Up. F-Tono has 2-metered reversals that are at the end of the day gimmicky because they don't truly reverse shit on Wake Up. They can just be cancelled from meaty A buttons into a shield and punished, but nobody's crying about F-Tono having gimmicky specials. In fact, people bitch about the fact that he has 2 of them, so okay Kohaku, I'll meet you halfway. I agree that your character's defense game is weak, but you don't need to lie and claim you have no reversal. It comes off like you couldn't find that many weaknesses for your high tier character, and instead of just owning it, you're trying to hyperbolize a weakness she actually does have. Nobody will feel bad for me if I say I have bad defense. Plenty of characters have crap defense. But what if I just interpret the definition of a reversal in a less liberal way so I can claim that I physically don't have one?
Delightfully devilish, Seymour.
Now, let's address that top con, EX Guard. EX Guard is a universal mechanic in Melty Blood that all C and F Moon characters have access to. When you go from neutral to block within, I think, 4 frames of being hit by the opponent, you'll get a golden block called EX Guard, which makes you recover 1 frame faster, and your opponent will have 1 extra frame of hit stop, for a total of a 2 frame larger gap, and it will push the opponent back further than a regular block. It is not a fucking con for your character that people can EX block you. Newsflash, literally everyone in the game has to deal with being EX blocked and pushed out. Honestly, it hurts characters like Ryugi way more than Kohaku, because Ryugi's normals come out in a very rhythmic pattern due to their startup and the amount of block stun they put players in. This means that Ryugi is not only one of the easiest characters to EX guard, being a character that most people tell new players to learn to EX guard on, but because of her normal's large range and the fact that she already pushes out a bit further than other characters to compensate for this range, EX blocking Ryugi forces her pressure to follow very predictable strings, even more so than the most predictable F-Moon characters because of the distance Ryugi gets pushed out to compensate for her larger than average distance. Now let's see, are there any cons about this on Ryugi's page? Oh no, look, there aren't, because Ryugi has real fucking problems she has to deal with. She doesn't have time to worry about make-believe problems that everyone else in the game already deals with regularly. And God, look how much they wrote on the Kohaku page about it. It's like a whole introduction paragraph to an elementary school book report. Yeah, we get it. Being pushed out makes it harder to use your command grab on people. We all feel really bad for you. I'm not sure if the long description is the author trying to justify that. No, really guys, EX Guard is really bad for her, or if they're just trying to fill up as much space as possible so that the cons look more filled up in comparison to the pros. I'll leave it to Aka to sum up what people reading this page think when they read this con. This page gets a C for See Me After Class. Alright, now we get to move on to the good stuff. I'm the #1 Nero hater on the planet. I fucking hate this character. I think he's bullshit. I think he's not fun to fight.
I've had more fun playing with dog turds. I'd rather fucking yank all the hairs out of my scrotum.
So we get to his wiki page and, well, first impression, we got a lot of cons here. This character is top tier, literally top 3. The only reason he's not top 1 is because the top 1 character actually shits on him really hard, so technically he does have a bad matchup. How can a character like that have so many cons? Now let's go through them in order. Really tear this guy a new one. Large hurt box. Being the tallest character means you get new unique fuzzy options on him. Okay, I guess that's kinda true, but in Melty when you get hit by a fuzzy, you go into your crouching hit animation, meaning it's not like characters that didn't have a fuzzy before now get one and he has to worry about that. It's more like someone can now get a kinda cheap instant overhead on him finishing him off if he's literally 1 hit from death. Which I guess technically is a downside, but it's not really game changing. Honestly, I know more characters who get annoyed by his height because they have mix-ups designed to miss on purpose to throw people off, and that doesn't happen on Nero, so they actively lose an option against him. On top of that, him being so tall means it's really obnoxious to have to jump in on him from the air, since if you delay your jump in to hit him while he's crouching, he can stand up to a really great height and just jab you right out of the air. But if you swing early enough to hit that, he can oftentimes just not block high, and now you've whipped a normal and you're falling right into his arms. I guess I can see his height getting him now and again, but honestly, I don't feel like it's that big of a deal. Next one, poor mobility. I mean, I guess he can't run, sure, that does kinda suck, but with how massive his normals are and how his game plan revolves around him summoning get-out-of-jail-free animals to just run around and hit shit even if he's being hit, not being able to sprint at someone isn't really the biggest of deals for him. I guess it kinda sucks, but he's not actually hindered in the air at all. Characters like Powered CL get noticeable jump startup and heavy, short jump arcs, but Nero glides through the air gracefully like every other character can. Then he gets buttons like these to work with, and it's like, I don't really feel bad for you that you can't run. But I guess it is technically a downside. Next one, mediocre defensive options. Honestly, I'll kinda give him that one. Like, yeah, if he doesn't EX shield you, he likely will not get an actual punish on you. Here's the thing though, his summons don't go away if he gets hit. So if he does shield you and cancels into a summon, he's forcing you to either back off or play a dangerous guessing game by deciding that you're actually gonna commit to attacking him. A character like Sisei has a rough time after a shield because her A-normals don't hit high enough to anti-air people after an EX shield, and her specials out of normal shield will be inconsistent at best to retaliate with. Nero though can just force people to have to literally let him go. You can hit the fucker and then you have to just walk away and let him back off, because while he can't directly punish you, if you have the audacity to think that you can continue doing what you were doing, you're gonna eat shit. I do agree that he has a harder time mashing out of stuff because of his slower A buttons, but... Wait, what's this? Slow abare? To anyone who doesn't know, because you don't play fighting games or something, abare is just a word people who want to sound smart use to say that they're mashing a button to get out of pressure. Listen to how much smarter you sound when you use it. Bro, this guy's just mashing. No, I responded to your reset with abare. See? Now that guy is 2 steps ahead of the regular competition. Alright, lacks options off of regular shield.
Wrong.
Yeah, we kind of went over that one. It works hand in hand with the mediocre defensive options. You could probably just merge those 2 into one point and then have it say, slow buttons for mashing out, bad shield options, only metered reversal means he has to hold more pressure than others. Let's see, limited ability to cancel most of his strongest normals. Alright, now we're getting into the I'm looking for even the smallest thing to put on the cons list type of cons. I get that his 2A can't be jump canceled on those early hits.
You can't do it!
Meaning he's guaranteed to get hit with a shield counter if his 2A gets shielded, but his JB can be jump canceled on both hits. The only time when it can't do this is when the later frames of the first hit are what is shielded. But honestly, that feels kind of specific. I get so much shit when I have any kind of gripe at all, that like, Ftono's buttons don't cross up or something, or I missed because I clipped into my opponent during pressure. But Nero players are out here able to complain about his JB in like any way? Yeah, okay buddy, I'll just tell you what everyone tells me, try aiming. Maybe if you didn't swing so early and actually aimed your shot, you'd be able to block shields. In all seriousness, yeah, I can see this quirk being pretty annoying, but like, it really does feel like at this point we're just trying to find shit to fill up a cons list. First, we have 2 cons for what could just be 1, and now this? Is there a quota of cons that need to be written? We're kind of stretching here. More vulnerable to drops. Yeah, how about I again tell you what people tell me when I get annoyed about the jank of doing instant V-Scion dive kicks on certain routes. Play better. I'm not gonna sit here and let a top tier character have a con be that his combos could be hard sometimes when I'm playing worse characters who have points with just as much jank and I get no sympathy. And finally, specialized toolkit at a cost. Bro, what the fuck does that even mean? Can have a hard time playing if he can't set up his zoo? Yeah, and Aoko has a hard time when she can't set up her orbs, which actually go away if she gets hit, by the way, but that's not a con listed on her page. Wait, what the fuck? Where'd the fucking pros and cons go? They removed the pros and cons on the Aoko page. Give me a minute. Okay, what does this overview say? See how huge amounts of offense. Yeah, this overview doesn't even mention how fucking polarizing matchups feel and can feel when characters have good ways to deal with your main neutral tools on reaction. Oh, but apparently a big downside of Nero is that sometimes people throw fireballs at him and he actually has to play the game. Ooh, I feel so bad for him. In all honesty, this page isn't even that bad. For all the shit talking I'm doing, because I like to bully Nero and Nero players, none of these are technically incorrect. While some of them might feel a bit like they're stretching to find cons, and you could probably combine 2 of them into one, nothing said here is actually a lie. It's all technically true. Nero is a character that, despite being top tier, does have a moveset that plays very uniquely compared to the rest of the cast, which means it's not unbelievable that he'd have more quirks in his con section despite being a top tier. And I don't really mean that in a flattering way, mind you. It is pretty unique how often he can just get out of jail free and eat paint chips and then somehow be the one doing 4k damage with a full corner carry and Oki, all while having some of the highest health in the game. Like, yeah, other characters can't do that. He is very unique. But that uniqueness does come with the cost that he does occasionally run into characters whose movesets can feel downright unfair to play into, like C-Mech and F-Hime when those characters know what they're doing. This one gets a B. Not bad at all, some light work, it could be an A. In order to talk about the next wiki page, first we'll have to talk about whiff punishing. What is a whiff punish? Does punishing someone who whiffed a move count as whiff punishing? If you jump a special move and that makes it whiff, is that a whiff punish? Or does whiff punishing only apply to certain moves? Maybe it's dependent on the type of game you're playing. If someone does a move like a DP and it happens to miss, nobody calls that a whiff punish, that's just called a punish. If Nanaya does his running slash and it misses, nobody calls that a whiff punish, that's just called a punish. If Ftono misses these slashes and gets punished though, some people would actually call that a whiff punish, though others would still just call it a punish. Perhaps a whiff punish is the act of punishing someone's extended hurt box when they take a swing and it misses, and just punishing the general recovery of an unsafe move or a special that ended up not hitting is classified as a regular punish. So when it comes to whiff punishing, it seems that there are two schools of thought. The first is that any attack which punished something that missed, whether by jumping over it, dodging it, or spacing it, is a whiff punish. The second school of thought is that jumping a move to punish it is not a whiff punish, it's more of a read. Though a whiff punish can also be a read, not all reads are whiff punishes. This means that a whiff punish is something that happens more in the grounded neutral game in most cases. By this logic, this means that some characters are more susceptible to being whiff punished if they make a mistake than other characters. Comparing the Blade Flurry that C Nanaya and F Tono have, Nanaya's has 20 frames of recovery and Tono's has 12. This means that on a whiff, Nanaya's attack is easier to whiff punish than Tono's, making Nanaya's slashes less safe for protecting space, and making him a character that will likely get whiff punished more often if the move whiffs. That makes his slashes a higher commitment and more dangerous to use in neutral than Tono's. Okay, now that we understand all of that, I must ask the question. Why the fuck is the first con on FPCL's page that her tools have significant recovery, which makes them susceptible to whiff punishing? The fact that it's brought up as a con implies that it's more of a problem for PCL than it is for other characters. So let's test that. Let's see just how easy it is to whiff punish all of her moves. Well, this rock basically covers itself. I don't see how I can whiff punish this move. It being a two-stage attack designed for her to recover and interact with means that whiff punishing it is actually kind of impossible. Alright, how about the missiles? Well, those are projectiles. By the definition we're using right now that you can't jump for it to be a whiff punish, this move can't really be whiff punished either. Even in a situation where you're potentially running under the air version, she can EX cancel it. So, okay, that move isn't the one we're talking about either. Let's see, the Dragoon jump? I mean, you retain all of your air actions after using it. It's functionally just a massive jump with a hitbox on it, and since PL has awful jump startup, it's not actually uncommon to see some players just use this as a stand-in for her jump. So this move also can't really be whiff punished. So I guess at the end of the day, this con must only be talking about the pile bunker, which is weird because the con says grounded tools, plural, so that's kind of misleading. But Gibbons, you say. Her pile bunker has 30 frames of recovery. In the example earlier, Nanaya's slashes had 20. Her moves must clearly be easier to whiff punish. Yeah, you're right. Her move does have more recovery. Let's compare how much space their moves occupy on the screen. Oh, yeah. I see why her move has more recovery. It's kind of big. Like, almost half the screen big. Well, 30 frames is a lot of frames. Let's see how realistic it would be to actually whiff punish this attack. Well, if I try to run in and hit it after I've identified that it's missed, it's not very easy to whiff punish it at all. Even if I'm reacting not to the move, but to the startup of the move and I'm running in, it's still not that consistent. In fact, the only times I can punish it are when I'm identifying the startup, I begin to run in as it's already active, so that by the time the active frames are done, I am within a couple of frames, standing in what was its range, and only then can I barely make it over to Punisher. And this is with one of the fastest characters in the game, mind you. So you're telling me that this character is more susceptible to whiff punishes on her specials than other characters, when 3 of her moves are basically impossible to actually whiff punish, and her 4th move is a move that's only possible to whiff punish under the circumstances that I am more than half a screen away, identify the move by its startup and begin running right as it's active, but have also spaced myself close enough to be within its range very shortly after it's inactive, meaning my spacing must be immaculate or else I will find myself tanking the hit, and I have to play a character that's fast enough to do this in the first place, since some characters don't have runs and physically cannot cover this space in times, and those who do have runs still oftentimes aren't even fast enough to do this. A move that requires all of that to be whiff punished, and is also generally physically impossible for more than half the cast to actually whiff punish, is her only realistically whiff punishable move. And you're telling me that one of her cons is that her specials are susceptible to whiff punishing. Yeah, that's just blatantly false. Whoever wrote that's fucking delusional. Alternatively, maybe they just have a very liberal definition of what a whiff punish is. If they believe that a punish is a whiff punish if you jump over the special, then yes, I guess this move actually is very realistic to whiff punish, since a very realistic way this move would be dealt with is to identify or read its startup and then jump over it and punish that recovery. If they believe that a punish is a whiff punish if you jump over the special, then yes, this move is very realistic to whiff punish, since a realistic way this move can and will be dealt with at times is to identify or read that they want to do it and then jump over it and punish it. However, if that is the definition of a whiff punish, then this con is still utter bullshit, because by that logic, literally every character in the game with a special that can be avoided by jumping is equally susceptible to whiff punishing. So this wouldn't be a con for her still, as it's literally something everybody deals with and would be equally vulnerable to. V Scion Claw, whiff punished. Tono Slide, ooh, nice footsies, idiot, whiff punished. Aoko Fireball, hey, this guy's trying to skip neutral, not on my watch, buddy. Yeah, whiff punished. Miyako Punch, whiff punished. Len, time to get whiff. Okay, what the fuck? This character's fucking busted. Yes, clearly this scenario is unique to PCL, and she has to deal with it more than everyone else. No matter how you define what a whiff punish is, this con is fucking moronic, because what it implies is either blatantly false, or she's trying to pull the Seiko Haku bullshit of pretending a universal maneuver is now somehow more detrimental to her than everyone else who deals with it regularly. Just because no one else is complaining about it doesn't mean they don't need to deal with it. It just means they probably have real problems, and complaining about being jumped over, like literally everyone deals with, would be fucking stupid. I wish I played a character who playing was so carefree that someone jumping my attack was something that required actively processing and dedicating brain power to, rather than it being something that needs to sit on the back burner of my mental stack because of all the other crap I gotta pay attention to. What makes this con even funnier, though, is that it's right next to her other 3 cons, which are really good and legitimate fucking cons. Limited air mobility. Yeah, her super jump and jumps are dog shit. I don't know if I'd say her air dashes are, like, bad. Short air dashes aren't inherently bad. I wouldn't call Nana or Tono's air dashes bad, but hers are a bit slow to start, and they don't really go anywhere, so yeah, I guess. And yeah, she can't cancel her normals into each other in the air, or jump cancel out of them. Yeah, that's a pretty legitimate downside. Takes a lot of damage. Yeah, another legitimate downside. She does have one of the lowest health values in the game. If you're able to hit her and get some momentum, she can just totally get fucked. High jump startup. Yeah, so PCL literally can't avoid being shield countered. Not in the Nero way of like, oh no, my gigantic button with multi-hits have small windows where if you shield, I will get hit. Woe is me, having the second highest health in the whole game, and sometimes, but not always, having to take a shield counter damage. Oh, the humanity! Like, no. If you shield PCL, she can't avoid it. She gets totally shafted in that regard. I don't know any other character who physically cannot avoid shield counters. Even Hime, with her floaty slower jump, can avoid shield counters. PCL might be the only character in the whole game who can't do this. That is a huge fucking con, and even the biggest PCL haters like me won't dispute that it must suck getting shielded and knowing that if you were literally anyone else, you could have avoided that. Those are 3 legitimate cons. Undisputable, concisely written, clearly conveyed cons. It was perfect. Why did you feel the need to just make up some random fuck-ass 4th one that is so blatantly false? And then make it the first one people will read, which ensures that no one will take this character's qualms seriously. I've seen PCL players in the past comment that everyone talks mad shit, but none of them understand the nuance that goes into playing such a specialized character. But when that's the first thing that people read when they're trying to learn more about your nuanced character, I can't blame them for thinking that all the legitimate complaints you have are probably just skill issues, if the first thing you think people should know is that you unironically think that she is more susceptible to being whiff punished than others. But this goes deeper. Did you know that the PCL page used to have 2 more cons that have since been removed? And they must have been even stupider than the whiff punishing one if that one is still around and those ones aren't. Here we have the old PCL page. Let's see our changes here. First con we'll address is the high execution floor con. This isn't a con. Remember the C Arcuid wiki page also mentions hard combos, but it puts it in a footer as a note. It doesn't try to pretend that the fact your character has to learn combos that might be harder than average is a con. It just mentions it so that people know what they're getting into with this character isn't something with easy execution. I don't really think you can call your character's execution a con unless the combos which make your character practical for use are so wildly difficult that even at the highest level, no one can be expected to reliably pull them off consistently. And I doubt PCL players are going to try to convince people that her combos are that wildly inconsistent, though I will admit they do indeed take more time to pick up than other characters' combos. I don't think this should be a con, and clearly no one else thought so either, because it no longer is. And the second one, combos are easy to reduce. Okay, this is another case of the boo-hoo, the universal mechanic affects my character so much more than others scenario. Yeah, newsflash, if you just practice reduce timing for a bit, most characters' combos are relatively easy to reduce. If you know the B&B you're being hit with, it's not too hard to tap to its rhythm. Sure, some characters are going to be harder to reduce than others with quick multi-hits here and there, but at the end of the day, FPCL's combos are no harder to reduce than any other F-Moon's combos for the most part. I think this con was put in there because PCL has combos that can go on for like literally 13 seconds, and when people complain about that, because it's fucking boring, PCL players always just respond, oh, well then reduce the combo. Listen, bitch, I am reducing the combo. That doesn't make it any less enjoyable for me to sit here and watch you play a single player game for the next 13 seconds. Most characters' combos go on for like 5 to 8 seconds. That's enough time to get hit, do the FGC head nod, process why you got hit, mentally reset, and boom, you're good to go again. Having to take 12-second combos from a character that also gets those combos from throw and has some of the safest, borderline uncontestable Oki setups in the entire game fucking blows. And just because your rhythmic, boring loops are easy to reduce, it doesn't mean that people are being unreasonable when they roll their eyes at it. PCL player coming up with cons that aren't universal mechanic everyone deals with challenge. Impossible. But hey, maybe you can reduce a lot of damage out of these combos. Here's me doing a really unoptimal version of a combo that the wiki says is essential. Alright, 4.1k, that's pretty good, but that was unreduced. Let's try it again with it being reduced. Okay, 3k damage. A whole 1000 damage was reduced off of it, which isn't unsubstantial. But as long as combos are reaching 3k damage, you're generally still doing pretty okay. Wait a minute though. I did an unoptimal version of that essential combo. A real PCL player would have done more damage. Let me check the wiki to see how much damage it's supposed to do. Oh no. 5k? Assuming you reduce, let's say, 1.5k of it off with perfect reducing, you're still doing around 3.5k, and that's really good for a combo that got fully reduced. Some characters don't break 3k at all if you reduce their shit, and their combos aren't even too hard to reduce either. So this is kind of a non-con, which is why it was removed. Just reduce is something that PCL players say to people complaining about their character's combo length, and it just somehow made it onto the wiki page, which kind of tells you a little bit about the intelligence of the average PCL player, now that I think about it. Like, if someone is complaining about combo length and you tell them to reduce, that lowers the damage, not the length. So why do they say that if you're complaining about combo length? I mean, I guess if they started comboing you and told you, just put the controller down and stop playing, you'd probably actually do it, and they don't want that. Not that they'd notice anyway, since their combos go on so long. Hey, wait a minute. I'm starting to notice something on this old wiki page. Yeah, her takes a lot of damage con was added to replace her lackluster defense con. I'm not totally sure why, because the lackluster defense con is actually true, though I guess she does have good options out of shield. But now that I'm reading it, it's got more written than the previous con, despite saying the same thing but with less to say now that we're just talking health values. I just had a thought. High commitment neutral tools. Heavily punished for any mistake. Who are the people that pros and cons are written for? Well, a new player probably, since experienced players don't need to be told what characters do well and where they're weak. That being said, this means that the pros and cons of a character on their wiki can color the perception of an inexperienced or uninformed player towards that character and their players. We've also seen that sometimes cons on pages aren't really written because they're legitimate cons. They're written to downplay a character or characterize them in a certain way that the author wants people to view them, but not how they necessarily really are. So it seems like whoever's writing this FPCL page is trying to characterize her as a high risk, high reward, highly technical type of character. Feeling the need to exclaim that she gets punished heavily for any mistake isn't untrue, but the fact that it wasn't there before and it still got the point across, yet now the need is felt to further emphasize that? Normally I wouldn't shake two shits at it, but with the addition of the first con that I've already shit-talked to death, it really seems like the new edit of this page is trying to characterize FPCL as a high-risk, high-reward character. FPCL, A character with moves that are, if anything, harder to punish than other characters' average specials. A character with some of the most borderline uncontestable safe Oki in the entire game. That character? High risk, high reward? Yeah, more like normal risk, good reward. This is the kind of shit I'm talking about when you play a high tier or a specialist type of character. You can really easily lose touch with what you actually get the fuck away with, and you begin to think things like EX blocking and reducing somehow radically affect your character more than all of the others. It kind of reminds me of that Effie Aki meme that says, Effie Akiha can reward you for playing like an idiot in the short term, cause her risk reward is so fucked. Don't get duped into thinking you made a good choice just because you got 7k. Use your brain. And then an Effie Aki player shows up and they're mad because they know it's true. Guess what, FPCL? Everyone has to take risks in this fucking game. Just because you sometimes get punished for taking those risks, but you also get a lot of damage in some of the best Oki in the game, that doesn't make you high risk, high reward. It just makes you risk reward. A universal concept that these fucking PCL players seem to think somehow affects them more than everyone else. What do you gain by trying to characterize your character like this, in a way that nobody will take seriously except only new and inexperienced players? Almost like you're taking advantage of new players and trying to mold their perception in a way that's more convenient for you before they get older and know better. It's kind of like grooming. Now, am I saying that the people editing the pros and cons of fighting games wikis are groomers? I'd like to say yes for the sake of the joke, but then people will be willfully ignorant of the fact it's a joke and they'll try to start shit. So, no, I don't think if you've edited the pros and cons of a fighting game wiki, you're a groomer, okay? But I've got my eye on you. I see you posting those unfunny VTuber videos in general chats full of people who don't give a fuck.
I am not debating the ethics on consuming this media, because to those of you that defend it, you know what you are. And more importantly, I know what you are.
Anyway, I was planning to do a few fighting game wikis, but the longer this got, I figured I'd just stick with some of the Melty Blood pages I like and talk some shit. I don't mean any ill will to whoever wrote these pros and cons. I'm just chatting shit, don't take me too seriously. If you're someone who contributes and tries to fill out these wikis with information, it would be a waste of your time to get held up on some shit talk from a retard who themselves doesn't edit or contribute to these wikis at all. Shit talk about what you do from people who don't do what you do doesn't mean anything. So if I ended up striking a nerve with you, I'm just some fucking loser on the internet. It kind of makes sense why pros and cons sections are beginning to fall out of favor in these types of wikis though. The only people who benefit from them would be new players, not experienced ones. So wouldn't it make more sense to just have there be a character overview, or a list of things like, if you don't like charge inputs, don't play this character. That way new players could quickly skim and see if the character has any traits they want to avoid. It makes more sense to do that probably than make a pros and cons list that'll just end up getting used for people to downplay and complain about their character. Though, if you did change it to something like play if you enjoy and don't play if you dislike categories, I'd probably end up editing a wiki page just to do this. So you might want to hold off on that one for now.